Welcome back to the Brain Candy blog. I'm Leslie Rohansi. Today we're going to be talking about the E in the AGES model, which stands for emotion.
Using emotions creates the best environment for learning retention. The more emotional something is for the learner, the stronger the signal is to the brain to remember it.
If we can weave emotion into how we convey information, and also if we can elicit some emotion in the listener, it helps them to form those insights.
We all have this really big part of our brain called the prefrontal cortex, and it needs this optimum balance between where we put our attention and what emotion are we feeling.
There are these memory researchers at the University of Notre Dame and Mount Sinai Hospital and Barnard College. So they all partnered up.
They discovered something really interesting. When it comes to emotion, our brains are either moving towards reward or away from threat.
There is no middle ground when it comes to this.
Ever.
When I first came to EDC, there was an amazing facilitator, and she told this story about when JFK visited the grounds at NASA before the space program had actually sent anyone to the moon. The president saw a groundskeeper who was working on the gardens, and he asked the fellow, "So what are you doing?" And the fellow said, "I'm helping to put a man on the moon."
And I can't tell you how much that story stuck with me, because it was one of those aha moments for me where it created real insight that everybody needs to see themselves in the big mission.
Obviously, it stuck with me for all these years, too. So that created insight in me, and I was very grateful for that. We can create barriers to real learning, things like fear.
Sleep deprivation. Your brain just doesn't have the ability to process the information. If learning is really rushed, it's not going to be effective. Your prefrontal cortex in your brain fatigues really easily. And so it just stops after a while and nothing else goes in.
Really strong negative emotions are great at creating insight.
Unfortunately, this is how our brains are wired. And it comes from way, way back in our ancestry where it was a matter of survival. So anything that created a really negative response, we remembered because it was a matter of survival.
My very first coaching client, I learned a really important lesson. I was all gung-ho, I was going to save the world with coaching. And in fact, coaching isn't the answer for everything. And I learned that because my first client actually tried to commit suicide.
Coaching was not the answer for her. In fact, what she needed was some psychological counseling because she was feeling suicidal.
It would be like sending a heart attack victim to a dentist. It just wasn't the right thing for her.
In this situation, I was the dentist trying to be the heart surgeon.
I experienced so much emotion in that, as you can imagine. So I'm grateful for that lesson. It helps me to this day realize that coaching is not the solution to everything. So my question for the day is, instead of just sort of conveying information, how will you elicit that emotional response in another person so that they can build their own insights and ahas and maybe have something stick with them for 20 years? Think about when you're going to try this. Make a commitment to yourself to actually trying it and seeing what happens. Kind of like a science experiment. Have fun with this one. Have a great day.